And further announcement, will Randall update us on the Christmas party?
Yeah, our Christmas party is planned for December the 8th. It's a Tuesday night at House and Lake Country Club. I think everyone got an email from you. If you didn't, would you let me know? I have the invitation here today. There's a choice of about 3 entrees. This year's club party is going to be focused on Alzheimer's. All the proceeds from the silent auction will go to the CART Fund. We have several special guests coming for that meeting. A member of the local Alzheimer's Association will be doing the presentation, but we've also invited Sally and Ross Tollison to come, as well as Draper Watson, so they'll be with us there for that evening. So cocktails at 6, the silent auction will be from 6 to 7, and then we'll have dinner at 7 p.m. that evening. We'd encourage everybody to come, and when you come, bring something for the silent auction. There's a rumor that the chocolate cake is going to
Well, actually, it's caramel cake.
Caramel
Yeah,
cake.
caramel cake.
Caramel cake's going to be back.
Even more valuable than chocolate.
Oh my goodness. And with samples, I hope, this year as always. There's rumor there'll be a little California wine. I understand maybe some honey from a local producer will be available, and so.
Priceless.
Priceless. I'm sorry. So, we'd encourage everybody to come and bring an item for the silent auction. Let's have a good time that evening. So, appreciate it. We've passed around today a list for people to sign up. I've got a number of emails from people, so feel free to send me an email. I'll get you on the list, and we'll just keep circulating it over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Randall. And I will call on Mr. Bishop to give us a Rotary moment.
Today we're going to talk just a little bit about the classification principle. All membership of Rotary was based upon a classification. Basically, a classification describes the distinct and recognized business or professional services which the Rotarian renders to society. The principle of Rotary classification is somewhat more specific. It is necessary to look at the principal or recognized business of the professional activity of the firm, company, or institution with which a member is connected. It is clearly understood that classifications are determined by activities or services. To give you an example, if a person is the president of a bank, he or she is not classified as a bank president, but they are classified under the classification banking. Though the classification principle is not as dominant as it once was, in the old days, if you had a banker in the club, then that was it. You couldn't have any more bankers. You can only have one. But that was in the old days. The new days, that's loosened up a little bit, and now we can have more in one classification. Okay. The reason we do that is to try to have a cross-section of people represented in our community by businesses. Can y'all imagine what this club would be like if everyone in this room was a lawyer?
It'd be a mess, wouldn't it? You know, 2 to 3 is a gracious plenty.
Anyway, that's it for classification.
And if you got any question about what classification you occupy, just look on the back of the bulletin, and you'll find out.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bishop. And now I will call on Randall to introduce our program today.
Thank you. I think everybody here knows our guest speaker, Joe Posey. When we sent Joe a note and asked Joe, will you send us your bio, I got about 8 words, and that was about the extent of it. So thank you, Joe, for giving us all that great information about yourself. But I think most people know Joe is a retired educator and administrator from the school system here. He attends the Perry United Methodist Church, where he serves as a teacher of the Truth Seeker Sunday School class. I had the pleasure of serving with him for 5 years on the Perry City Council. He's also served as past president of the James E. Worrell Foundation. He has 2 children, 6 grandchildren, and Judy has put up with him, I would say, for the last 43 years. But a warm Rotary welcome for Joe Posey as he talks about childhood cancer to us this afternoon.
I've got a problem. I've spoke to y'all twice in the last couple of years. I was here to talk about the World Foundation a while back, and I was a substitute speaker then. And I'm a substitute speaker today. I don't know what's going on.
Your topic was far more important. We moved you up in the list.
I was over at Warner Robins last week, speaking to the Warner Robins Rotary, and I told them, I said, I know most of your speakers come and have uplifting messages about things going on in the community or the state or with Rotary, and I hate to be a downer, but my message is not really uplifting today, but it's a very important message that I want to talk about. About 20 months ago, if you'd asked me anything at all about childhood cancer, I couldn't have told you anything at all, other than it's cancer, it's bad. That's about all I knew. Knew very little about it. Although I was an educator for 35 plus years and dealt with kids all that time, plus kids at ball fields and et cetera, over my life, I'd only known one child who actually had leukemia during that time. It was a student of mine in Warner Robins years ago. But all that changed 20 months ago, April the 11th, 2014. On April 11th, 2014, we got a call from my daughter Mandy telling us that my granddaughter Mary Elizabeth had leukemia. Not only did she have leukemia, we found out she had acute myeloid leukemia, which is we call it AML to keep from saying all the words, I guess. Acute myeloid leukemia, AML. Judy and I, like you would do when you want to know something, you go to the internet and start researching. We went to the internet and started researching, and man, found out more than I ever wanted to know, believe me. One of the things I found out was there are many, many different kinds of leukemia, and each type of leukemia has subgroups under that. And in order to treat this leukemia, you've got to find out, first of all, what kind it is, and secondly, what subgroup it falls under. The other thing that happens is the subgroups change sometimes. Some kids start out with one kind of leukemia, and as time goes on, it changes to another kind. So it's a vicious thing. As you can probably guess, we were absolutely devastated. You know, it's something that you don't think is going to happen to you. I know at Mary Elizabeth's funeral, my son-in-law spoke, her dad, and he told the folks, he said, it's like a lottery. It's a lottery that you don't want to win. You never know what's going to pop up. You just never think it'll happen to you. We never even imagined it would happen to us, but it did. And so although we were devastated, we were optimistic. We were optimistic because this is 2014, folks. We wasn't in some little community hospital. She was at the Eggleston's Children's Hospital of Atlanta, which is a great hospital. Doing research again on the internet, I found out they're one of the top hospitals for children for cancer in the country. She had very good doctors. I met her doctors. I talked to her doctors. The doctors were very optimistic. They could do something. And also, I knew that I'd read somewhere in the recent past where 80% of the kids nowadays were surviving leukemia. So we were optimistic. We were devastated but optimistic at the same time. So she entered the Children's Hospital of Atlanta, and they prescribed a chemo regimen. Again, you may have heard me say this before. The night before, had been a chemo patient myself, and it's chemo. I always say, if you go to hell, that's what it'll do. Chemo. I couldn't stand the thoughts of this sweet little girl having to go through chemo, and it just broke my heart to think about it. But I also felt like she'll go through it, she'll survive it. It'll be terrible. We'll be there with her. She'll survive it. She's going to be okay. So they entered CHOA, and they began the regimen. Her regimen was chemo in hospital for 21 days. They would allow her to go home for a week to recuperate, back in hospital 21 days, home for a week to recuperate 4 times. Did this 4 times. In August of 2014, a biopsy showed that most of the cancer was gone. As a matter of fact, she only had 0.6% cancer in her body. Man, we thought that was great. You know, that's got to be a small amount. I don't know what the numbers are, but 0.6% sounds awfully good. But the doctors didn't think it was good. They knew that if you leave any in there, good things are not going to happen. So they ordered a bone marrow transplant. Again, I go to the internet, find out about bone marrow transplants. Very scary. It's very scary. The body's immune system is basically gone. There's no immune system. You're very susceptible to infections. These infections can be deadly. Miraculously, her little brother, Whit, at 7 years old, was tested and found that he was a perfect match. There are 9 markers, the way I understand it, that they look for in bone marrow matches. He had all 9 of them, perfect match. There are a lot of kids struggling to live. They can't find any matches at all. Particularly, I'll go and say this, particularly kids of mixed origin, Oriental origin, black kids. They have a hard time with some of these kids. There was a kid in Choa with her whose mother was Asian, father was German. They couldn't find a match anywhere with this child, nowhere. Anyway, we was a perfect match. So we felt good about it. If you can get through it, and we were confident. I think when we were there, Eggleston celebrated their 1,000th transplant while we were there. I said, they've done it 1,000 times. They deal with this all the time. She's going to be okay. And so she got through it. Seemed to be doing okay. She had to be in isolation for several weeks because of the infection problem. And she and her mother moved into Ronald McDonald House, so she'd be close to the hospital for checkups and this type of thing. But we were actually expecting her. This was getting into October of last year, and we really expected her to. She was talking about coming home, what she wanted to do for Halloween, and this type of thing. We was really expecting that. But then she got sick. She got sick with what's called graft versus host disease. Graft versus host disease is your body fighting the transplant. The body fights those transplants just like they fight a heart transplant, lung transplant, or anything else. Again, it's very, very serious, can be deadly. It is many times. At this point, Eggleston told my daughter and son-in-law, that's all we can do. We can't do anything else. What do you mean you can't do anything else? You just need to take her home. We'll put her on low-dose chemo. That'll keep everything at bay for a while. Basically, go home and die, is what they were told. Through a couple of miraculous events, they were able to get into, instead of following those instructions, they were able to go into St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. At St. Jude's, she had 2 more transplants, one from her father, one from her mother. After the transplants, both times she had just terrible infections. Both times she had a very, very severe lung infection. She was able to pull through these. It was a miraculous thing. She pulled through them. The doctor, as a matter of fact, the doctor said, I've never had a child pull through that, the infection that she had, the one she had last December. As I said, she had the best of everything. The best doctors, best hospitals, the best treatment available, the best of everything, but on September 2nd of this year, she passed away. Mary Elizabeth never had a chance. It was like a freight train going 80 miles an hour down the track, and you try to step in front of it and stop it. That's the way it was. There's no way to stop it. It was a runaway freight train. In 1971, we sent a man to the moon. Y'all remember that? We're in the modern age. We're sending people to the moon. We're sending them out in space. All kinds of things happen because of that. We have computers today because of going to the moon and space flight. Also, since 1971, there's been huge advances in medical science. We know so much more about to treat disease than we did 45 years ago. But even though that's true, Mary Elizabeth was treated, with very few exceptions, exactly the way she would have been treated in 1971. It's hard to believe it. The same way she would have been treated in 1971, she was basically treated in 2014 and 2015. Why? Why in the world does that happen? The answer is 4%. 4%. 4%, not 40, listen to me, 4% of the federal government's budget for cancer research goes toward childhood cancer research. 4%. In order to develop cures for diseases, there's got to be research. The research is usually, with cancers particularly, there are trials. They allow people to go through trials, and pharmaceutical companies basically test their medicines to see if they work. These trials are very expensive. They last 4 to 5 years, sometimes longer. The pharmaceutical companies basically are the ones who promote these trials and make sure they're going so to see if the medicines work. These trials take a lot of money. Every year, there are 16,000 children in our country diagnosed with cancer. That sounds like a lot. But on the other side of that scale, there's 1.5 million adults. 1.5 million, make sure I say it right, adults that are diagnosed with cancer every year in the United States. So you're balancing out 16,000 compared to 1.5 million. If you were in a business trying to make money, who are you going to go toward? You're going to go toward the 1.5 million folks, and that's where their money's going. I'm not saying it shouldn't go there. I'm a recipient I'm here today because of research in cancer. But more than 4% needs to go to our children. There are very, very few trials going on. I mean a handful of trials going on in this country for childhood cancer. As of today, there is 0 trials going on in this country for acute myeloid leukemia. Not one trial is going on for acute myeloid leukemia for children. Now, there are some very promising drugs out there. They're in trials now, some that are working, some that are working on adults. I'll go back a little bit and tell you about acute myeloid leukemia. It's not usually found in children. It's found in older men. People my age are the ones who usually get AML leukemia. There's drugs out there, but they're not approved for under 18. The last couple of months, Mary Elizabeth was with us. We found out about a trial going on at MD Anderson out in Houston, Texas. Having great success. Boy, it looked great. We did research on it. It looked great. We started calling out there. Sorry. We can't take anybody under 18 years old in this trial. There's drugs out there. They could very well work on children. But nobody's testing them on children. Our children are dying in this country at an alarming rate. I can't tell you the number of children that we came across over the last year and a half that are not with us anymore. The ones that are with us, many of them are not going to be with us long. 40,000 children are treated each year in this country for childhood cancer. 40,000. 1 out of 5 of these will die. A large number of these, if they live, will have severe and serious health problems that will eventually take their lives probably down the road. These problems are a result of the chemo, radiation, the other treatments they go through. It affects their heart, their lungs, their liver, all internal organs, digestive system. These drugs are poison. You got to use them. It's all we have. But going back to the 80% I mentioned earlier, 80% is bunk. 80% is bunk. Go to the American Cancer Institute. They'll say 80% of children are living. It's bunk. They aren't. 80% of children aren't living. Here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. Some children, if they live past 5 years, they consider them cured. They put them in the cure. We cure them. So a lot of kids who have cancer, it's according to the kid, according to the cancer and all this, they can put them on low dose chemo And they can keep them alive sometimes 5, 6, 7 years. And they're considered cured. Those kids aren't cured, they just were able to live those years. The other thing that happens is, on Mary Elizabeth's death certificate, it does not say she died of cancer. She died of heart failure. And that's what happened. I love St. Jude's to death, but St. Jude's is playing with numbers as well as all other hospitals. These kids are dying of cancer. They might have died because their heart failed, or the liver failed, or the kidneys failed, or another organ. But the cancer is what's killed them. So when you get that 80%, don't be too happy about it. So why am I here today telling you all this? It's a very simple reason. I want to do something. I don't want Mary Elizabeth's death to be in vain. What can you do? What can we do? What can I do? What can you do? One of the things we can do, we can call, write, email, harass, telegram, smoke signal, whatever we have to do to our legislators and let them know that 4% is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We just can't let it keep going. The other thing we can do is we can give as much as we can to some private agencies that are working toward curing childhood cancer. I passed you out one on CURE, the CURE Foundation. I'm very big on the CURE Foundation. All they do is work toward childhood cancer cures. That's all they do. And I go on and put a plug in here too. If you feel led to write a check to CURE, if you will put it in memory of Mary Elizabeth Parris or in some way put her name on it, all that money will go directly to AML research. And of course, that's the one that I'm after. You know, I'm angry about this. I'm very angry. And I'm talking to every group I can find. Somebody called me the other day and said, we've got a group of 6. Will you come talk to them? I said, I'll talk to 2. You know, we've got to get out there and get the word out. A couple of months before Mary Elizabeth passed, she told her mother one day, they never kept anything from her. She knew exactly what was going on the whole time. She said, Mom, if I have to die, I will, if it can help others. And that's what we've got to remember that. So I'm here today to ask y'all for your help. I'm asking help individually, and I'm asking possibly for help as Rotarians, as a group, to help me out. And that's all I have to say. Thank y'all so much for letting me come. Appreciate it.